guys, welcome to How to Hack by Meraki Therapy Center. Here we are going to talk about a bunch of different mental health related topics and how to hack them.
Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of How to Hack. I'm your host Arohi and today I'm joined by Mriga, a psychologist and therapist working at Meraki. Welcome to the show, Mriga. Hi.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We are glad to have you too. Today we are going to talk about productivity. Okay, it's something we hear about a lot. There are podcasts, YouTube channels, blogs, apps, even all dedicated to talking about productivity. But all of us are not sure about what it exactly means, right? What is it to be productive, or what does it even mean?
So productivity at its core is just measuring efficiency. What is the maximum that you are able to produce effectively in a very specific amount of time? When it comes to productivity, everything has a sort of productivity to it. You can have big companies like Capgemini, TIS, all of those things also have their productivity. There's a productivity that tiny little Meraki Therapy Center has. And there is a productivity that the individual person also has. That is what we're going to be talking about. Now, how we define productivity is not always how we understand it. There is this subjective idea of productivity that we have. And that tends to be related to productivity is what have I managed to do? Okay, and even then it is so specific that sometimes we only think of productivity in the context of work or in the context of academic students will think about productivity.
Correct.
That's the sort of thing that often happens. There is a difference between the definition and how we understand these
how we feel productive.
Yes.
Yeah. Makes sense. So, right, it's mostly about work, I think, right? Like our duties, what are we supposed to do? If you're working, then work. If you're a student, then academics, like you said. So it is more about completing the things on your to-do list. It's about, okay, I got this done.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're not working or when you're not in school or whatever, like you're not working, then you're not being productive or what? Like, for example, on a Sunday.
You are probably going to be productive and you're not going to think of it as being productive. We don't think of our daily chores, we don't think of the daily maintenance that we do of ourselves as a productivity sort of thing. But it takes a certain amount of effort to get up in the morning. It takes a certain amount of effort to brush your teeth. You know, if you have kids, then to get in that mindset where you're like, okay, now I have to focus on getting them ready for the day. Just because it's a Sunday doesn't mean it's an off day for them. They don't exist on that day.
Yeah, of course.
So there's a lot of things associated with productivity that we are not going to think of.
Yeah, like for example, I can think of the last Sunday that I had. I wanted to be productive and get a lot of things done, even at home. Like, I wanted to do cleaning and cook an elaborate meal and all of that. I didn't. I ended up cooking khichdi. So then I didn't think that I was being productive. But you're saying I still was?
Yeah, there was a product at the end of it, wasn't there?
Yes. Ultimately it's about the product, right?
Yeah. It's a problem also because we understand productivity through the lens of capitalism.
Oh yeah.
So you're not going to get homemakers thinking of themselves as being the most productive people in the world, even though they genuinely do a lot.
Yes.
They are on all the time and they are not going to get the credit for it. They're not going to get money for it.
Correct.
They are not going to get scores for it the way that students will.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like productivity. It feels like just doing what you're supposed to do. But it takes an effort.
Correct. When it is not rewarded, do you think we think of it as being less productive?
When it's rewarded is one thing. When it's not being recognized as work also.
Right.
Productivity it's almost like people have to see me being productive. And there are certain things that we do that people are not going to notice at all.
Right. As homemakers, as parents, like you said. Yeah.
That's just what you have to do. There's no option around it. But come on, you're putting a lot of effort into it. Even making khichdi, that thing that you said. You didn't order out. You made khichdi still.
Yes.
There is an effort you put in.
Yes.
There was a product at the end. It wasn't the product you were thinking of at the beginning. But there was a product in the end and you were being productive.
Correct. Yeah, that that makes a lot of sense. So, but exactly, right? But it comes easily with work-related things because I think they're very tangible and like you have something on the to-do
Yeah.
list, and so there's a plan you have. So it may come a little easily with work-related or studying-related things.
Yeah.
But otherwise, how do you handle this focus in general? Because, personally, I struggle with maintaining productivity when it's not about work, you know. How do you get more productive, basically? That's what I'm asking in general, overall.
The basics of productivity are always to analyze what you're going to be doing and be logical about it. Problem is that again it's very subjective. It's incredibly subjective. So then you're not going to be satisfied, then you're not going to think of yourself as being productive. So very much make it tangible. Let's say you were talking about wanting to make a meal, like a sort of nice meal for everyone. Okay, what sort of a meal? What recipe were you going to be following? What was it going to be, coconut based curry or something like that? Making it very tangible instead of an idea. When it's an idea, it is very easy to get lost in the thought process behind it and never get to the actual doing of it. And that happens with obviously these other things, and it can also happen in terms of work. Because again, if you have a work related goal, especially if you're self-employed,
Right.
that's a major issue. If you're self-employed, your goal may be like, I need to be better at this. Well, okay, but what do you mean by better? How are you measuring that better?
Correct.
If you are in a sort of structured work environment where you have to do a 9 to 5, again, you may want to impress your manager or something like that for a promotion, something like that. Again, make it tangible. What do I need to be doing exactly? Do I need to do a little bit extra over my duties? What are those duties? Do I need to be better in that? Do I need to socialize more? Because that is a big part of how you earn that sort of recognition for productivity. It's not even about productivity in that case. It's about how are you going to be recognized for your productivity. There are these sorts of things. You have to analyze how these products are going to manifest for you.
Correct. So, if say we divide our idea into like tasks or steps, do you think it would be better, like tangible tasks?
Yes. So when you're making a goal for yourself, there's an acronym that's very commonly used. It's called SMART. You should ideally make it specific. S, specific. You should make it M, measurable. You should make it achievable, A, and you should make it relevant, to your long-term goals, to your values, that sort of stuff. And it should be time-based. If you give yourself the rest of your life to be a better person, it ain't gonna work.
Of course.
That sort of a thing. It has to be time-bound also.
So now that you're speaking about time, I can think of procrastination now because that's what most of us do. When suddenly you have like, for example, when I had one idea that, okay, I want to cook an elaborate meal. That's like one idea. Okay. When I say that, okay, first for that I need to chop onions, then tomatoes, then this, then that, then I need to cook the rice, then. So now I have 8 tasks. Yeah. And I personally at least am more bound to procrastinate because I'm like, kar lenge baad mein, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Also, you might do something like you cut the onions, you cut the tomatoes. Now we don't want to do the rest of it. Let me switch up the recipe entirely and make it something simpler. Because one part of it I've done. No, this much I have been productive.
Exactly. So, to hack productivity, do we need to sort of look at hacking procrastination also?
Yeah, that's a big sort of problem with productivity. And now this is also very specifically a problem that a lot of students especially face.
Correct.
You'll study at the end moment before the exam. You're not going to study before.
Yes, we've all been there, I think.
Yeah. You'll stay up all night finishing that project, but you won't do it on the daily basis when you have free time actually. You won't spend that 10 minutes on the daily. That sort of thing often happens. But the thing with procrastination is, we think of it as doing nothing. Right? But there is an active choice going on. There is an active choice for inaction going on. And it is serving you a purpose. what is the purpose it is serving you. You have
Okay.
to think, especially if it's happening very consistently, you have to think, what is it serving you? Is it that this procrastination is happening because you don't want to think about what you need to do? Is it happening because you don't have the energy for it?
Like you're tired, yeah.
Yeah. Is it happening because you don't know how to do it? Is it that you don't care?
Yeah.
You know, do you think that you can do it at the last moment? There is a certain thought process behind procrastination also there.
The reason behind,
Yes,
right?
there is a reason. What is the purpose that this procrastination is serving you? Is it giving you the free time right now so that later on I'll think about it? That's a problem for future me. That sort of it.
Correct.
But future you is still you.
Correct.
Think of it in that term. Future you still exists.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist right now, but it is still you only who's going to have to deal with it.
Correct. So how do you hack this procrastination? I mean, if I want to just ask you that, like, okay, maybe I know a reason now. Then how do I work at it? Like, for example, take the same khichdi example. Maybe I cut the onions and tomatoes and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm not making a whole curry and let me just make one khichdi. We use these ingredients for that. You know, maybe I did that. And now that I think of it, maybe I was tired from the whole week. And so Sunday I did have plans, but then I procrastinated or I, waited after cutting those onions and tomatoes. And then I was like, you know what, now it's almost time, let's just make khichdi.
Okay.
Because I was tired, maybe. So how do I hack this? Now I know the reason.
Right. And it's a very specific reason.
Yeah.
It is that you didn't have the energy. Let's put it in that term. That's a resource that you had to put in that you did not feel like you had.
Correct.
How do you increase that resource? That is how you counter your procrastination. And there's also one thing that has to be said, that this sort of analysis, it works for a later time when you have stopped procrastinating, when you can look back at things and you can think, okay, this is the problem, I need to solve this problem. In that moment, honestly, the best way to deal with procrastination is to just start. Which seems very counter.
Yes.
It seems very counter to like, oh, okay, so I'm not doing something. So the solution to that is to just do it instead. Yeah. But we are also hardwired to finish a thing once we start.
True. Yeah.
Right? And you know the thing you were talking about where sometimes we break things up and then we don't follow through. That happens with me. If I break up a massive project into sub-projects, especially because it is something I have given myself. So there's no time limit.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'm like, but I've done this much now.
Yeah.
I can take a break.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come
I'm
back.
done with like 30%.
Yeah, I can come back to it later. It happens a lot with creative processes especially.
Correct.
Because there is an idea that I need to be in the right state of mind to do it.
Correct.
You don't. You don't need to be in the right state of mind to do something. What you need to do something is just to do it. The thought process part happened way before. You already thought about everything you needed to think about beforehand. It's now the doing part that you're struggling with. Understand that there's a difference between those two things. Procrastination is dealt with by just doing it. Once you start, you are that much more likely to finish it.
Correct. Yeah. So now that, like you said, to hack procrastination, we kind of just need to begin first, and then we are wired to finish that task. So let's say I have begun doing something. I have started doing it. But now how do I avoid getting distracted, or say how do I keep my concentration, my focus?
So when you have distractions, that time you manage them, a lot of the times the easiest way to manage them is by placing barriers to them. I have a thing with my phone where I might go to Google something for a report or something like that, but my fingers instinctively go to Instagram.
Correct.
I don't even recognize that I'm doing that and I am just instantly on it. And then it is only after I have sat there for half an hour going through reels that I realize that, hey, I was supposed to Google something completely different. I have put a barrier to it by putting a extra passcode.
Okay.
So that's one sort of thing. Another thing is if you're getting distracted by, let's say, sensory things around you. If you're getting distracted by sound, well, you have headphones for that. If you're getting distracted by something you see in your environment, then you can sort of shift your position. If you're getting distracted by your bodily sort of there are times when you can feel restless when I'm like, no, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get some water. And then that turns into its own sort of adventure that you're having outside of working. Well, keep a bottle near you.
Yeah.
You know, keep a bottle filled up near you.
Correct.
That sort of a thing. When you are being distracted, again, you figure out which is the distraction that is most potent for you. And you decrease its potency by placing barriers or just taking yourself out of that situation. So that is one way to manage your distractions. Another thing that often happens is also that you may feel like, I don't have the energy, like you said. You know, energy, is it internally or is it that it's taking mental resources? If it is a physical thing, if you're feeling lethargic, let's say, then one way to deal with that is just get your heartbeat up. Sort of do jumping jacks or high knees, that sort of a thing. Something that literally gets your heart pumping to the point where you're like, nah, I can't sit anymore. I have to do something because now I have this energy flowing through me.
That's very interesting, yeah.
And like you said before, you break tasks into subtasks, you make them tangible. You can tick off those tasks also. That's a point where it's just, we focus sometimes on the product. Process is a part of it though. And we don't tick off that process that we have done. So ticking off processes also is a way of maintaining your focus because you feel like, yeah, I've done this.
Yeah.
I've done this, so now I just have this to do. That sort of a thing. So this is one way to manage your distractions, manage your focus. One of the things I hear a lot is that I'm too bored.
Yeah.
I'm too bored to do this. And then you either get distracted or you just feel like, no, I'm too bored to do it. Yeah, but so what? Do you need to be fully engaged to do something? I am very bored when I'm brushing my teeth. I'm doing it anyway. The idea that we need to be constantly stimulated by our work is indicative of how the world we live in is so stimulating that we cannot function without it. Right? It's like the decreased attention span that you see because of phone usage and all of that. It's not a necessity. You don't have to be like super interested and like, yeah, I'm so motivated to do this to actually do something.
Yeah, that's a very nice take. I've never thought about it this way.
Because we do that. We get bored and then we're like, yeah, let me just go on Instagram for a bit. Let me just see a couple of reels so that I'm not bored anymore. But you don't need to be interested to do something.
True. Yeah, that's something to think about. I love that. Yeah. Now I'm going to talk, like, let's come back to productivity.
Yeah.
Of course, like, we are on the topic, but let's come back to productivity. There is this quote by Robin Sharma. Productivity is less about what you do with your time and more about how you run your mind.
Yeah.
Is what he says. So, like, and you also said that productivity is a subjective experience, right? So does it have to do with our emotions and how we handle it, and is it different for different people? Because emotions can be different for different people.
So you can put all these tips into practice. You can be the most focused you have ever been. You can be so productive and you may still feel unproductive. That is because it is a subjective experience is one thing. There are some people for whom productivity has to be perfect. Perfection is not a tangible concept at all.
Correct.
So you can, when you're chasing such an ephemeral idea, you are never going to reach it. And so you're always going to be unsatisfied and you're always going to feel unproductive regardless of what you have done. So this idea of perfection is something you have to let go of if you want to feel productive. There's a lot of emotions that we often associate with productivity. It's good to be productive. It is bad to be unproductive.
Yeah.
And sometimes those
That's
emotions
the
can
most
be
basic.
so intense. Like I have not done something, so that means I am not worth anything. We associate our self-worth to our productivity, to the things that we do. And again, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And it is so emotional that the emotions may impact your productivity. If you're feeling incredibly anxious, let's say, about doing something, well, anxiety often makes it so that you are not able to focus. And then you're not able to focus, so you're not able to be productive. And then you get more anxious about the fact that you are not being productive. And it turns into a cyclic thing.
Yeah.
Because that emotion is so overpowering. We have to learn to distance our emotions from our productivity. Productivity is about getting tasks done. It is not about how we feel about it. Those two things are very separate.
That's a very therapist thing to say, right? To separate emotions and
Get in touch with your emotions. You got to know your emotions. That is important.
that's how you're going to separate.
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
You have to know it to separate it.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a khichdi.
Yeah.
I keep talking about khichdi's, but
Yeah.
that's sort of.
But like we need, we procrastinate with that too, right? Thinking about our emotions, like that is not something all of us are very willing to do all the time. Yeah. Maybe we need to tell people that you're not being productive if you're not talking about your emotions, and then they will start taking it seriously.
Seriously, fingers crossed that they take it seriously. I will, honestly, that's what a lot of therapists also do, right? They give homework to think about your emotions. Because once it comes from an external source, when it becomes a task,
right,
you're that much more likely to do it.
Correct.
Parameters, adding more parameters, making it so streamlined that you have no option but to do it. That is when you start doing things a lot of the times. Even when it comes to things like thinking about your own emotions.
Right. So yeah, if I have to sort of summarize our discussion, then first you need to understand why you're procrastinating if you are, then hack that first. To decrease your procrastination, just start doing it to increase your productivity, right? Is that right?
Yeah. To a great extent.
Okay. And then, of course, for that you need to work on your focus and apply all these techniques.
These techniques.
Right.
Recognize where these techniques are going to be useful. So some people it's not going to be useful. Then don't put them into practice. Everyone is so specific in the way that they work. These things may not work for you, and that is absolutely fine. Maybe something else works for you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's great. That's great to know. So before we end the episode, I just want to ask you if you have any one message or any one sort of takeaway that you would like to share with our listeners.
Yeah, so we'll predominantly be talking about how to increase our productivity in the podcast, but there's a dark side to being productive also. There are things like we talk about the to-do lists. However, if a to-do list is empty, then you're not going to be satisfied with it and you're going to fall into a spiral of emotions associated with it. In that case, maybe instead of a to-do list, have a have-done list, where you're just talking about the things that you have done. Instead of talking about the things that you have missed out on doing, what are the things that you have actually done? Be more aware of them, being more mindful of these sorts of things that you have done, actual active sort of things, rather than the inaction. Sometimes this tendency to focus on what is not there rather than what is there.
Of course.
That sort of a thing. And it is important to understand that productivity is not a measure of your worth. It is a measure of your achievements. It is a measure of your efficiency. It is a measure of our life in a capitalistic society. It is not a measure of self-worth. Babies are not worthless just because they don't do anything except for eat and sleep and poop. If you are finding that this is happening to you, that your self-worth is so wrapped up in what you are doing, what you have done, what is your productivity, if you're finding that you're connecting the importance of your existence to your work and your work ethic, please seek professional help. You are more than the work that you do. And if you're having difficulty getting to that point, recognizing that, you may need a professional to guide you through that process.
Right.
It may be indicative of bigger underlying sort of issues that you are having, you may not be aware of, and this is just how it is coming out. For a lot of people though, honestly, just being conscious of the way that they think about productivity and how they are conceptualizing it that's going to be enough. And I hope that for a lot of our listeners, that is going to be enough too.
Yes, yes, I hope it is too. And thank you, Mriga, for sharing all of
welcome.
your insights and like doable techniques. I mean, dividing things in tasks, or I love the idea of a have done list. I think, I am one of those people who obsesses over what I haven't done.
Yeah.
So that would be a good thing for me. So, yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot for all of your insights, all the information. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in and spending your time with us today. I hope you liked the episode. If you do, please share it with your loved ones. Don't forget to rate it and subscribe. If you have not listened to our previous episodes, we would love it if you do. I hope to have you with us for the next episode as well. If you wish to stay updated about our upcoming episodes and to know more such hacks about mental health, do follow us on Instagram. The link to it will be in the description. See you in the next one. Bye.